Okay, hopefully this video will help give you a pretty good overview of the uploads that I'm doing and issues that I'm having. You might take notice here on this first CSV file, I've labeled it here as import test 0. And actually what I've done is I've created a total of 4 basically duplicates, CSV test 1, 2, 3, and of course 0, so a total of 4. Now do know that on each one within the name field I've put to indicate that the data is changing correctly. Test 1, and then the same thing, test 2, and finally test 3. The test 0 actually just has the standard name, no test in parentheses there. But that'll help to distinguish the differences in those CSV files. I'm going to close these out. Okay, now I've done the same thing with images. In this case, this is the original file, so the pictures that are associated and belong to that data set don't have any watermarked images on them. But if you take a look at test 1, the exact same images, but you can see they're watermarked with test 1, the same with 2 and 3. So just so when you do new uploads and overwrite those images, makes it a little bit easier to see that the images themselves have in fact changed, and it can help you track down, of course, which ones are remaining in the cache. So from there, I'll go ahead and close these out and move on to doing an import. Just through FTP, I use FileZilla to actually upload and copy those images here into the drop folder, the var import images folder. So those images were preloaded before I started recording so that they're there and ready. I can close out of this now and go ahead and move on to the import. Within the extension itself is under, of course, System, Improved Import, going on to Import Jobs. It's currently the only import job that is enabled. Now do know that prior to importing this, I had these records in the product data set originally, but I did delete them out. I did clean and flush the cache, and I even re-indexed. But here is the actual import job itself. It is set up to automatically re-index afterwards. And one thing you might note is this extension is a very comprehensive, kind of the Swiss Army knife, it seems like, of import extensions, in that it does give you a ton of options that might be helpful. Removing images from directory, it does configure to resize after, and so on and so on. You can scroll through and see if anything might be set up incorrectly or might be helpful to change the settings. But as we scroll down here, here's where I come to the CSV file that I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and choose a file. In this case, I'll go to file 1. Well, actually, let's just do the 0. Import test 0. These are the images with no watermarks. So here you can see now that the actual CSV file is import test 0. I had to pause the video and go back and double check to make sure that the images were the correct ones corresponding. The images have no watermarks on import 0. So I validate the file first. It'll validate, and then you'll see the mapping appear on screen. Here are all the field maps. I validate those. I always get this error message. I've worked with Firebear Studios extensively. Nobody seems to really clearly explain why. They just say that it's not a concern or an issue and that it's not related. So from there are actually 3 pages of maps. From there, we go ahead and save the job and run. And then I'll go ahead on to run. While it's running, I'll go ahead and pause this till we come to the end. Okay, here's where the job has completed, and again, you do get server error messages, which Firebear says are not relevant, and they had worked through a few of those, so everything should work well. Ultimately, it does say that the import was successful, so I can close out of here. I'll go ahead on over just to be on the safe side, and I'm going to run the clean and flush and even reindex commands. I'll be right back. Okay, I've gone ahead and flushed and cleaned it through the command line. I'm going to go ahead into System Cache, just take a look at it and maybe see what the backend admin says. Okay, everything looks good. This is the imports has actually been disabled, which is the way it was originally configured. But let's go ahead and double check the products. You can see, in addition to what I had previously mentioned about the cache images not getting cleaned, they still don't get cleaned either here in the back end of Magento on the product screen. The thumbnail here still shows this as test 2 and in the large. Now if you go into the details page, this was not the main issue that I was concerned about, although I would like to get it addressed as well. But come down to the images and videos and you can see that is the new image that I just uploaded. As I had mentioned previously, no watermarks on it. It is assigned those image roles. But again, going back to just as a side note, something that I would like to get fixed, the image caches on the product screen here, even these thumbnails don't get updated. I think it was actually this record here. So that was another issue. Now going ahead and taking a look at the front end, the shop by room link here is the one I usually click on, and you'll find as you go down here as an example again of where if on this product page here there's a hover over issue where that was a previous item to that. So you can see that it's not changed there. And if I come down, it's just easiest to go over to page 3. Here are those items again that should have correctly updated, but they still show test 2. In this catalog search result, it did not refresh. Let's see what happens when I click on it. Still shows test 2 there. When I click on that, you can see in this Photorama viewer, it still shows test 1. So at different places, the caches are not getting cleaned. It may be a theme issue. The theme does have different functionality in widgets. Let's just randomly check another item here. This was another item that I had previous issues with. It looks like all those have been fixed one way or the other, but that right there comprises the bulk of my issue. Whether you get catalog search results from the search bar, let's just say 110, which was the stock number and a couple of these items. In this case, they're not refreshed here. And like I showed before, that one actually worked, which was good, but it's fairly random in some reasons. I can't connect any dots as to how and why, but let's do a search for 1110, which is the number. Now, rather than choosing one of the drop downs in the search, I'm just going to hit enter and go to catalog search results. And here again, you can see these have not updated. They still show test 2, which was run previously, but the last one I just ran was test 0. And the images themselves were the new unmarked images. So I hope that helps. Thanks, and please let me know if you have any questions.